Warriors, welcome to another video on the Anxiety Guy YouTube channel. Thank you so much for being a part of this video. Today, we're taming the demon, the DMN, our default mode network. What is the DMN? Basically, the DMN is on this unconscious way of you guys thinking and behaving because you're not really perceptually aware of what's really going on and you're not really involved in any kind of cognitive task. So a lot of people say to me, Dennis, I had a week of no anxiety. What happened? And I said, what did you do? Well, I went for a hike, and then I was watching my son play a basketball game, and then I was riding my motorcycle, and it was fantastic. And I said, okay, well, biggest thing is that you got very, very specific as far as what you could see in the outside world, what you could feel, and what you could hear, okay? So when we become specific and really engaged and absorbed in some kind of task, whether that's cognitively thinking something, challenging our thoughts, or perceptually looking at the trees and going, my goodness, those are some green trees, right? Or it's really, really windy and I feel the wind against my face, or I can really sense, the sun being really hot today and such. When we engage with those perceptions, those senses that we have, we disengage from our DMN, okay? We disengage from the internal chatter. Again, this goes back to the idea of mindfulness, guys. Now, the predetermined setting, which is in fact your default, when you don't think about anything, when you're not really doing anything, that default is the very thing that's holding you back from living a fulfilling life away from stress and anxiety. How does it happen? It starts at childhood. Whatever was there first, everything else gets connected to that one thing. Secondly, what have you been practicing on a daily basis that has in fact created this default response within you? You've practiced anxiety, you've practiced fear, you've practiced worry, you're hanging around people that are in fact telling you how crappy the weather is, or you're really ruminating over all these bad things in your life, how your life's not moving forward. You're practicing these things on a daily basis and therefore making that default stronger, much, much stronger, guys. Now, we live largely out of touch with nature. We must understand that. We're disconnected to the outside world. We're very connected internally, okay? We must find a new sense of living. We must start focusing in on things that we can see, feel, hear in the outside world, and therefore taking our attention out of our internal world. And what we call the parasympathetic system, this system that brings equilibrium to your mind and your body, gets activated when we in fact think in terms of a broad perspective as far as the external world goes. So if we're thinking very narrow and we're going, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? I'm very absorbed as far as what's going to happen in my future. That panic attack is going to happen later on. Here's what's going to take place. I'm going to go to the emergency room, or I have a meeting later. I'm going to be anxious in the corner. I hope it doesn't happen, this and that. You're very associated in your future thinking. And what we must do is start becoming dissociated in our future thinking, guys. We must come from a place of trying our best to live in the present moment from now on. Not past associated, not future associated, but future dissociated, where you're seeing the fear, but you're also seeing the positivity. So seeing, hearing, feeling, these perceptual tasks are the very things that bring balance back to your DMN and your DMN activity, okay? So let's understand that this is no mumbo jumbo. There have been fMRI scans that have in fact proven this idea over and over and over again, okay? And overactivity of the DMN in fact causes you to think those thoughts, those fearful, doubtful, anxious, constant brooding, internal chatter type thoughts, okay? Now, we know about the DMN. What must we do in order for us to tame the DMN, our default mode network? We cannot always be involved in a task. That's for sure. There's going to be times where we're going to be in our house and we're going to have nothing to do. And a lot of people say, Dennis, when I'm at home, I have this sense of so much anxiety, and I can relate in my life when I was engaged in something, when I was absorbed in something, when I was really engaged with my senses, I was okay. I had some moments and mini vacations throughout the day away from my sensations, away from my thought patterns. I was like, this is great. And then it happened. I had time. So there I was, maybe I went for a tea, and I was sitting there outside in a nice cafe, and my default set in. And I didn't like it one bit. So, guys, I'm going to run you guys through 6 steps that's going to help you tame your DMN, raise your parasympathetic system, bring equilibrium to your body and mind, and cleanse you of all this mumbo jumbo, this chatter. The more you do this 6-step exercise, guys, the powerful it's going to be. We all know the importance of repetition, the importance of practice, because you practice anxious things on a daily basis, don't you? Now it's time to practice a different way of thinking, behaving, and what to believe. I know you can do it. I believe in you. The Anxiety Guy is behind you 100%, guys. So, first things first. Get a piece of paper and write down your stressor. Identify what your stressor is, okay? So really become conscious of what it is that is in fact causing you anxiety. Maybe criticism, maybe sensations. It could be anything, okay? Write it down. Now after that, what I want you to do is map out associations around it. So what do you think around this stressor? How do you currently behave around this stressor? What can you associate with this stressor? So basically you're going to write something down, the stressor, and then around it you're going to write down all the things that you associate with that stressor. Okay? Now that's going to give you a deeper understanding, a deeper perspective of your stressor, guys. Okay, so now you're still in DMN hyperactivity mode, which is fine. Step number 3, you're going to create a new awareness map. So now that you've written down your stressor and all the associations behind it, on the other side of the paper, I want you to write down the stressor again. Just write it down, okay? And this is going to set the tone for the future way of thinking around this stressor. Okay, now the fourth thing that I want you guys to do is this. Focus and move your attention to something external that is narrow. Okay, and what I mean by that is, what can you feel, okay, in your current world right now as you're doing this exercise? What can you feel? Okay, kinesthetically, what can you feel? And I want you to focus on that one feeling for 1 minute. Okay, so if it's a pen, notice the texture, notice, the colors, take a look at it, really focus in on that pen. Okay, if it's a quote and that's got some writing behind it, some bubble writing, and you can feel it, feel that quote. Whatever it is, really get in touch with something external, but one thing, not a broad number of things, not a number of things, but just one thing. Okay, next thing is auditory. What can you hear? One thing. Engage with one thing that you can hear. Okay? And finally, visually. What can you see? What is your one thing that you can see in that moment? So take your attention off of you, put it into the external world, and really have a narrow mindset when you're doing this. What can you feel? What can you hear? And what can you see? Okay, guys? So that is step number 4. Now, number 5 is I want you to write down the new beliefs around the stressor after the exercise. So this new awareness map that you have, okay? You're gonna find that if you've done step 4 properly and you're engaged in what you're doing, you're absorbed, you're focused in what you were doing, then you're gonna have very little this time to write about the stressor that you have in your life. A lot of people run into this, go, Dennis, criticism. I don't like criticism. That is my stressor. And the second time around, after step number 4, okay, I didn't know what to write. I only had a couple things that I had to write. Perfect, guys. That is the goal, is to become dissociated from that future self that you have. okay? And stop creating this story of what's going to happen in the future. That's the key, is to disengage with the DMN, okay? So now that you've written down these new beliefs around the stressor after your exercise, what you're going to do is you're going to access a broad state of attention and basically hold it for 1 minute each, okay? So we focused on kinesthetic, what can we feel, okay? We focused on auditory, what can we hear? We focused on visual, what can we see in a narrow kind of view. Now you're gonna do the exact same exercise, okay? But now you're gonna go more broad, okay? So what can you feel? I can feel a leaf in my hands, but at the same time, I can feel me sitting on this seat here. I can feel my feet touching the ground. 1 minute, okay? Really notice all the things that you can feel. Auditory. How many things can you hear at one time, right? Have a very, very broad view. Visual. How many things can you see at one time in 1 minute, guys? So that's the next step, and focus on all things at once, and that is your final step. Now, you have just cleansed your mind, okay, and deactivated your DMN. This is fantastic. Now, don't brood over it. Don't think about, is it going to come back? What's going to happen? This and that. Guys, this 6-step exercise to tame your DMN takes practice. I want you guys to do this on a daily basis from now on. Make this your to-do, part of your to-do list to give back to your mind, body, and spirit, guys. It is really, really important. I truly believe that you can tame your default mode network and in fact create a new default, a default that is in fact more positive, a default that in fact starts to see the positivity, the optimism as far as what's going to happen. A default where you start to balance things out and say, you know what? Negative and fear, okay, I noticed that, but I also noticed the other part of things as well. Okay, guys? So tame your demon, tame your DMN starting today. I know you can do it. Take these 6 steps, practice them on a daily basis, guys, and remember, you are more than anxiety. Bye, guys.